I'm Ann Charles.
I'm Linda Quinlan, and welcome to All Things LGBTQ. Today is Tuesday, November 30th. We acknowledge that we are taping in Montpelier, Vermont, which is unceded Indigenous land. Ann?
Okay, I'll begin.
Let us just say that Keith is out. He has a family obligation, so Ann and I will be doing the show together. So,
which is clear at this point,
okay.
Probably. Let's start with Antarctica, which we don't often hear from. Antarctica just celebrated its biggest polar pride ever, and I have a picture now of Antarctican revelers. They describe it as the absolute coolest pride celebration on Earth.
That was a great picture.
There were 25 people, which seems small, but it was the largest one they've had. It seems modest, but the turnout is significant. The entire continent, you may not know, it has just a few thousand people living on it at any given time. And those numbers dip significantly during the winter months. I learned a lot about. So the winter months go from March to October. Polar night blankets, Antarctica in 24/7 darkness during the winter, and severe weather conditions mean that researchers are essentially stranded on base for 8 to 9 months. In spite of the challenges, Pride events have been going on informally since 2018. Last year, researchers officially declared November 18th as the now annual Polar Pride celebration. We are important and valuable members of the community, even at the end of the earth, they say. So enjoy the picture of Polar Pride in Antarctica. I have one story from Africa, which is a good one. Botswana appeals court upholds the ruling that decriminalized gay sex. The government tried to reinstate a criminalization order, but that was outlawed in 2019. And before then, gay sex was punishable by 7 years in prison.
Wow.
So good news out of Africa. Now I have my next story is short. Linda will not be surprised to learn this. Therapists backed by U.S. groups tell LGBTQ Costa Ricans that homosexuality is wrong. So they're all down there, and also
they're down there now?
Focus on the Family and Exodus Global Alliance. They promote anti-gay therapy. And this group, Open Democracy, launched an investigation and sent, spies out to pose as people who were interested in converting. And what they heard was terrible stuff. Only a sadistic God would create a gay person was one of the messages that they learned. So a bill to ban licensed professionals from doing this was introduced in 2018, but evangelicals are blocking its progress through Parliament. So that's the update from Costa Rica.
They have to spread the good news.
Now let's go to South America, where I have a picture before you of the first trans person elected to the Chilean legislature. She's activist Emilia Schneider, and she's been working with LGBT groups for many years. One interesting, she'll be in the Chamber of Deputies, which is the lower chamber of Chile's National Congress. So good for her. Her father was assassinated. He was head of the military in another regime. So she's an activist, and good for her. Now I would like to start right away with some clips, if I may.
Okay.
The first is from an Argentinian film called One in a Thousand. It's a romantic drama on video on demand and premieres November 30th, which is today, right?
Right.
And immerses viewers into the world of Iris, a teenager who becomes enamored of and pursues Renata. The young women eventually meet on a bus and soon start hanging out together. Iris, however, has heard a rumor from a friend that Renata is living with HIV. Now, how these two young women navigate their relationship. Iris is tentative, forms most of writer-director Clarissa Navas's meandering film. If you're not interested in a meandering film, this critic says 1 in 1,000 is, although not much happens, 1 in 1,000 is quite compelling. There are interesting subplots involving Iris's gay cousins Dario and Ale, who also grapple with their sexuality. Watching these youths care for each other is gratifying. This low-key film, which is set in the projects, provides a strong sense of place as it depicts its LGBTQ characters with humanity and compassion. So now let's take a look at 1 in 1,000.
Ay, no apriete tanto.
Bueno, no seas maricona. ¿Qué estás escribiendo?
Una carta.
¿Para quién?
Qué vieja que soy. ¿Por qué no hace algo más actual que no le buscan en Facebook o algo?
¿Qué onda? ¿Qué te gusta? ¿Algún novio? ¿Alguna novia? No, soy como un ángel. Hey Ángel, ¿qué haces? ¿Quieres salir hoy conmigo?
Qué linda que sos.
Todo el mundo te mira tanto. ¿Y viste cómo es? Hoy la chica infierno grande. Soltame. No me tires.
Igual para mí tienes que tener cuidado porque...
Mira si es verdad lo que andan diciendo de eso.
¿Lo viste?
¿Cómo coger con chicas lesbianas?
Ay, ¿qué? No busques eso.
Pues yo no sé si alguna vez me atraparán.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, looks great. Now let's go to Europe. And I don't have a picture of Josephine Baker. I'm a real follower of hers. I studied modernism in Paris, expatriates, and she was among them. Well, she's out American-born Josephine Baker, and she'll be the first black woman and the 6th woman ever to be interred at the Pantheon in Paris, one of the highest post-mortem honors in France. She was born in poverty in Missouri, dazzled France as a dancer when she arrived in Europe in the 1920s, worked for the resistance as a spy during the Second World War, and built her Rainbow Tribe. Her 4th husband, Joe Billion, and their 12 adopted children of different ethnicities in a chateau after the war while campaigning for civil rights. 80 people have made significant contributions to French history and had their remains transferred to the mausoleum at the Pantheon. Her remains are going to stay in Monaco. But 75 men are in the Pantheon, and almost all are white. So she's an out bisexual woman born in 1906. She'll get a cenotaph, which is an empty tomb with a statue or plaque. Her son said that her remains will remain in Monaco. She was an artist, the first black international star, a muse of the Cubists, a resistance fighter during World War II in the French army, active alongside Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights fight. She says, "France made me who I am." She says about her work in the resistance, "Parisians gave me everything. I'm prepared to give them my life." What a heroic figure.
Yeah.
And in Hell's Kitchen on the way to Off-Broadway, there's a restaurant called Chez Josephine with pictures of her all over. More European news. The Dutch government apologizes for a discredited transgender law. The law was in place for nearly 30 years. until being scrapped in 2014. It required transgender people to undergo surgery and sterilization if they wanted to change their gender on their birth certificate. Transgender Network of the Netherlands welcomed this ceremony, saying the Netherlands is the first country in the world to make such an apology, but it said that it took the government too long to scrap the law, and the compensation of 5,000 euros offered to people affected by the law was too low. But they apologized. More good news from Europe. Germany has an incredible pledge of sweeping reforms for LGBTQ rights. Now the coalition of the SDP, the Green Party, and the Free Democrats has formed. They just won that election in September, and they're going to reveal their program of reforms. Well, they did on the 24th of November after lengthy negotiations. They're going to change the immigration laws, bring the voting age down to 16. It plans to change the process by which trans people of Germany achieve legal recognition and bring in self-identification. The reform would mean that trans people would finally be allowed to determine their own gender. The coalition would also require that statutory health insurance covers transition-related medical care in full. They're going to set up a fund for compensation, too, for people who've been harmed by previous legislation. This fund would make Germany the second country in the world to compensate trans people for forced sterilization after Sweden did it in 2018.
Good news.
Great news from Germany. Now, I've included this story in Europe, even though it involves the Middle East, because the race car driver Lewis Hamilton is taking a stand for LGBT rights in Qatar. Let's take a look at him. You'll see two sides of this photo. He's a British Formula One driver who plans to wear a pride flag on his helmet for the upcoming Qatar Grand Prix this weekend. So you see a picture of him and then of his helmet.
I think he won, actually.
Really?
I don't know. I think he did.
Yeah, well, it was on Sunday,
Yeah.
November 21st.
I
So,
think he won, and there was just his helmet.
and he's going to wear it in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
too. Well, the message is we stand together on his helmet.
Yep.
So,
Good for him.
yeah, the other countries in the region that have Formula One races are Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia. So he's been, Mr. Hamilton has been a vocal supporter of LGBTQ rights. He spoke out against the Hungarian anti-LGBT laws. Everyone deserves to have freedom to be themselves, no matter who they love or how they identify, he said in front of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Well, I hope he did win. We'll
He
give you
did
an
win,
update.
I'm pretty sure. You can check on your phone when I'm doing my news, but I'm pretty sure he won.
Well, before we get to you, I have one more European headline, if I may,
Okay.
involving a clip. When Harry Met Santa, Norwegian Christmas an ad celebrates gay rights anniversary. So Norway, we're in Norway now, the state-owned postal service Posten is marking 50 years since Norway decriminalized same-sex
That's
relationship
amazing.
with a heartwarming Christmas ad in which Santa Claus strikes up a romance with a man called Harry. When Harry Met Santa, a nod, as we all know, I'm sure, to the 1989 romantic comedy When Harry Met Sally, has Harry spots Santa delivering gifts to his home. Meaning again, each Christmas over a number of years, the two slowly begin to bond. But Santa's busy schedule only allows for fleeting encounters until he enrolls Norway's postal service to help with the deliveries, and the two are finally able to spend time together and to kiss in the final scene. This year is all about love, highlighting the fact that 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the decriminalization of homosexuality in Norway, Poston said in a statement. Reactions to the ad have been overwhelmingly positive. So let's take a look at when Harry met Santa.
Hva syns du om? Du må jo forsøke å liksom tenke deg inn. Hei, bror. Hei. Slutt da.
Du snorker. Det kommer neste år. Oi. Der ser jeg så verst. Ta skjorta. Jeg har mange pakker jeg må levere. Jeg kommer tilbake neste år.
Ja, alle hvor vi har vært en sant, det drøpte på meg.
Er fin, da?
Var det fint?
Jeg kommer til å savne deg. Det er mange som venter på pakkene sine. En dag i året. Et år til.
Hei, ja. Det var kommet noen pakker til deg. God jul!
Jeg fikk tak i litt assistanse i år, så jeg kan være sammen med deg.
Very romantic. My best line from when Harry met Sally was, "I'll have whatever she's."
It's iconic, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like one of those lines you never forget.
Oh.
Um,
So should I go on to Asia?
no, I think I'm going to start and then we'll hopefully get back to you.
Very good.
Okay. Well, since Keith isn't here, I'm going to do a local story of which both he and I and Anne are very, very concerned about. And it was reported in the Bridge that there's a new craft store scheduled to open at the Berlin Mall. It has already been reviewed and approved by the zoning board in the town of Berlin as a component of the ongoing project to create a new Berlin center.
This is Keith's statement you're reading,
Right.
is that right?
The new craft store will occupy the space recently vacated by the closing of J.C. Penney, as well as the adjacent 4-store spaces. A contract for the new store has been signed, but an opening date has not been publicized. Unfortunately, the new store will be Vermont's only Hobby Lobby. Yes, the Hobby Lobby, who has been leading opponent to LGBTQ plus inclusion and equality by supporting and funding the National Christian Foundation. That Hobby Lobby had recently lost a discrimination suit filed by a transgender employee who was denied the use of a gender-appropriate bathroom, a lawsuit that took 11 years. In a review of Hobby Lobby, founder David Green has spent millions on the acquisition of religious artifacts belonging to other nations and cultures. They have been questionable enough to garnish the repeated attention of the Department of Justice. It was not reported how Hobby Lobby was chosen to be the craft store being viewed as the anchor to the Berlin Mall's offering of stores. The Berlin Mall is owned by a New Jersey-based Heidenberg Properties. Heidenberg Properties manages 17 malls in 7 states. Their website contains listing of retailers to whom they have an affiliation. Hobby Lobby is not included on their listing, however, nor is there a Hobby Lobby included in any of their other malls under their management. It is unknown if Heidelberg Properties reached out to Hobby Lobby or if Hobby Lobby initiated an application. However this occurred, we need to be more vigilant at following what stores are being considered for inclusion in the new town center at the Berlin Mall and how associated review process will be conducted. While we may not all be residents of Berlin, the mall is promoted as being Central Vermont's shopping experience. It reminds us to do our homework even when shopping local.
May I add a couple of things?
You may.
In the article I read, it's supposed to open in April or early summer.
Okay.
And this fiercely Christian organization is a virulent opponent of reproductive rights as well.
Yes. Yes.
So, and they're supposed to be one of the 2 anchors, Walmart being the other one, of that mall. So shop wisely, friends.
And I think, there will be some organizing, I'm sure, around picketing and demonstrating in front of that store when it opens. Mm-hmm. So we will keep you posted about any action that's being taken in the future. So we have some entertainment news. Colton Underwood says he didn't want to be gay. He was the virgin bachelor, a man who lived out a heterosexual dating fantasy 3 times in 2 years on national TV. In coming out, Colton has a new Netflix series where people can watch his journey. He was on The Bachelor, and he was on 3 times. So anyway, he's come out. So, after winning and becoming the defending champion during Transgender Awareness Week, trans woman and Jeopardy contestant Amy Schneider has successfully defended her title 5 episodes in a row, meaning she now qualifies to compete in Jeopardy! Tournament of Champions, a yearly tournament between the show's 15 contestants that won the most episodes. Schneider is defending her championship in the episodes that are currently airing, the most recent one being on Black Friday, her 8th straight victory. She's earned $295,200 thus far. So that's good. And we'll tell you more if we have time about Fulton County PA Library is refused additional funding because they opposed an LGBT group at the library. The commissioners did. Bozeman City Commissioner Christopher Coburn crashes the rainbow ceiling. Bozeman is both black and queer and is the first black LGBTQ person elected in the state of Montana. Bisexual teacher resigns after being told to remove his pride flag. Many older queer adults face abuse, yet really report this abuse. Let's see. Court revives a lawsuit after gay teacher is fired from a Catholic school. Joshua Elliott sued the Indianapolis Archdiocese after he was terminated for having a same-sex marriage. The Court of Appeals will hear this case, so we'll let you know more about that. Charlottesville, Virginia, a jury ordered 17 white nationalist leaders and organizations to pay more than $26 million in damages Tuesday over the violence that erupted during the deadly 2017 Unite the Right in rally in Charlottesville in 2017. And we'll have more on that. That's a very important case with Roberta Kaplan. So we'll talk about that more. Jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict on two pivotal claims based on a 150-year-old federal law passed after the Civil Rights Law. And that's, we'll have more about that. That's part of the Kaplan story.
Okay.
So we'll have more about that. Civil rights groups sued last week to challenge a law in Tennessee that restricts transgender students' participation in school sports, arguing that it is unconstitutional and discriminatory. Lambda Legal, the Civil Rights Liberties Union, and the ACLU of Tennessee filed a lawsuit challenging a Tennessee law excluding transgender youth from participating in sports, the American Civil Union said in a statement. Michael Fiala doesn't get much sleep. In the dead of the night, the Seattle resident gets panicked calls and messages from members of the LGBT community in the Middle East, mostly gay men, thousands of miles away, terrified for their lives. They reach out to him in the darkest moments, sometimes when they're contemplating suicide. At times, the callers just want reassurance and a shoulder to cry on. He listens and comforts them as best he can from the other side of the world. His phone is always on. On other days, the callers want help fleeing their country and seeking refuge elsewhere. With a network of friends and human rights organizations in different continents, Fiala jumps into action. He works to get these people to safety on his own dime while they seek asylum in Western countries. He also helps them through the long, arduous UN refugee immigration progress, which can take years. The retired chiropractor's compassion for refugees dates to his time as a young man in Detroit, where his closest friends were refugees from Hungary. After he moved to Seattle, he began helping refugees settle there. But over the past decade, helping LGBTQ people in the Middle East, where they face persecution and even death, has become his lifetime mission. What a hero.
That's impressive.
And just weeks after Beth Robinson was confirmed as the first out LGBTQ woman in the country as a judge on the federal appellate court seat, President Joe Biden has again nominated a second out woman to also join the same bench. And I don't seem to have her name here.
I can look it up, but I've just looked up.
Hey, did he win?
He won.
Yes.
So thank you, Linda.
Yes. The White House announced this week that Biden is nominating. Oh, I got it. Yeah, never mind.
Good.
The White House announced this week Biden is nominating Allison Nathan, currently a district judge on the U.S. Court for the Southern District of New York. to seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Second Circuit. Senator Chuck Schumer recommended her,
Schumer.
as he did when
Schumer.
she was nominated, to the current judgeship by President Barack Obama. And Stephen Sondheim, musical theater legend, dies at 91, and we'll have more about that coming up. So, Anne.
Well, let me give you up-to-the-minute information. Against the odds and defying the numbers, after a weekend of stings and arrows, Lewis Hamilton took arms against the sea of troubles with a remarkable win. So thank you, Linda, for bringing us up to the minute.
I did read that he had won.
And
that
so
was good.
it was true. It came to pass. Now let's go to Asia, if I may. Let's look at a picture of people taking photographs of an underground subway passage in the subway system in Bangkok, which was decorated to promote equality and gender orientations in June. Now, Rainbow Power, hundreds have demanded marriage equality in Bangkok. They were able to host rainbow flags and sign a petition calling for legal marriage for all, regardless of gender identity and sexual orientation. The rally came, and this is the downside, the rally came 2 weeks after the Constitutional Court rejected a challenge to the constitutional prohibition of same-sex marriage, a legal maneuver meant to get around Parliament, where attempts to write it into law have died. As of publication time, there were more than 93,000 signatures on a petition. Organizers said they would deliver it to lawmakers once it reaches 100,000. So it's a setback, but you know, Thai protesters are fighting. Now let's look at a picture of a Taiwanese-Singaporean couple who have just won cross-national same-sex marriage lawsuit. This is Zhao Si on the right and Mei Ping on the left. They are a Taiwanese national and a Singaporean partner. They won their lawsuit. Remember I reported that that happened. It's being fought on a case-by-case basis. The couple who go by the names of that I just mentioned, Zhao Si and Mi Ping, went to the office on October 29th, October 2019, to register their marriage. Of course, the Ministry of the Interior bans same-sex couples when one of the partners is from a country that doesn't legalize same-sex marriage. So Mei Ping is from Singapore, which does not allow gay marriage. So their individual marriage certificate has been granted. But
you're going to lose your phone, I'm sorry.
There are over 400 cross-national same-sex couples in Taiwan who are unable to get married due to this Ministry of the Interior's crazy directive.
That's nuts.
The judicial passed a draft amendment that will allow same-sex couples to get married in Taiwan as long as one person is a Taiwanese citizen, but that's now undergoing deliberation. It was proposed in January. So, piece by piece, couple by couple.
Yep.
Now, Japan has had its first trans march in Tokyo to raise awareness of trans rights. It's the first ever held in Tokyo's Shinjuku ward. It was on November 20th and called on people to recognize human rights and dignity for the transgender community. Some 400 participants marched. It was organized by transgender activist Tomoya Asuma, who's 32, and Tomato Hatakano. It was held on the Transgender Day of Remembrance to honor the memory of trans people whose lives were lost to acts of transphobic violence. So there's a little progress in Japan. Not so much progress in Russia, you may not be surprised to know. A Russian LGBT film festival has had its website blacklisted by the government. This film festival is called the Side by Side LGBT Film Festival. It takes place annually in St. Petersburg. Russia had its website taken down by authorities in a move that the organizers say was provoked by an orchestrated campaign of complaints from ultra-right-wing groups. Established in 2008, Side by Side is a key LGBTQ event in Russia. It's been targeted by hate groups before, including during last year's printed physical edition when the event was disrupted by a homophobic campaign. I reported on that. But now it's all online. It opened with a screening of Firebird, Peter Rabane's English language feature. That the virtual screening was also the victim of homophobia because the anti-LGBT comments flooded the Q&A after the screening. We, showed a clip of Firebird on this program. This is one of the very few LGBTQ festivals in Russia which fills an important gap in the Russian society by giving voice to the community, Firebird director Rabane added. Instead of investigating the film festival, the Russian authorities should be investigating the organizations of such cyber attacks. I feel this information needs to be shared so that we can support the festival and help bring more love and understanding to societies around the world. So, bad news from Russia. But now I have good news from Turkey, if we may go there. The protester who went viral standing up to police has released a gay anthem for Turkey. Expatriate singer and newly minted LGBT icon Liana Georgieva has found her voice. A child of Bulgarian and German parents, the itinerant 26-year-old sauntered to worldwide attention in Turkey for 4 months ago, in a black spaghetti-strap dress and high heels, carrying a rainbow purse and blowing into a deafening purple whistle. And there's a picture that I can't show you because I have too many pictures. As police cracked down on a banned gay pride rally in downtown Istanbul that day in June, dozens were arrested and tear gas was fired into a crowd thinned by years of official refusal to permit such events. "Baby, I have heels on. How will I walk? I walk slowly," she told a column of Turkish police in English as they pressed her forward with riot shields. The video of her casual defiance for the LGBT cause in Turkey, where homosexuality is legal, but official opposition to the LGBTQ community has surged in recent years, went viral. Now, Georgieva has released what she hopes is an anthem for Turkey's LGBTQ community and its current rights struggle. "All for Love" is a song that I wrote to prolong the moment of the viral video. Georgieva, whose stage name is Liana Georgi, told journalists ahead of the song's November 11th release on streaming platforms. "I also wanted for my community to know that the viral video was never about me. It's about all of us. It's all for love. What we do is just in order for us to exist and love who we want to love." Georgieva came to Turkey 2 years ago and recently earned her MA in clinical psychology. She was born to a Bulgarian father and a German mother and spent most of her childhood in Germany. But she said she's also thankful for the privilege of being an EU citizen with a German passport, implying that Turkish members of their country's LGBTQ community face greater challenges, and that's certainly true. The problem with the viral video is that I'm not representative of the whole LGBTQ community because I have a different status here in Turkey because of my German passport. So the worst thing, let's say, that can happen to me is that I get deported for being so outspoken. So now, let's hear a rendition of All for Love.
I try to hide, try hard not to stumble and fall. You know that I gave my all to be out of your sight and to fit your mind, but it's way too small for all my love. Now I give my all for love. Ooh, all my love, you know I give my all for love, for love, for love, for love, 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 for love, 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 for love, 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 for love, love, for love, 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 for love, 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 for love, love, love. Baby, I got heels on, and I learned from you how to run. Being gay in this world is no fun, but we carry the scars that you give to us with pride, pride, pride. Love and hope are here. We will never disappear. You might not wanna hear that change is here and queer. All my love, now I give my all for love. Ooh, all my love, you know I give my all for love, for love, for love. For love, 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 for love, love, love. Now I give my all for love, 'cause I have nothing left to lose. Who I love is nothing that I choose. No matter what you do or say, we will still be gay. Now we give our all for love, for love, for love. All our love, you know we give our all for love, for love, for love. For la la la, for la la la, for la la la, for la la
Makes you want to get up and dance, doesn't it?
Leanna Georgie.
So is that it? So I will do a couple of stories and then we'll do your,
If there's time.
yes, I think there will be. I'm just going to quickly cover a jury 17 white nationalist leaders and organizations to pay more than $26 million in damages Tuesday over the violence that erupted during the deadly 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. After a nearly month-long civil trial, the jury in U.S. District Court deadlocked on 2 key claims, but found the white nationalists liable on 4 other claims in the lawsuit filed by 9 people who suffered physical or emotional injury during the 2 days of demonstrations. Attorney Roberta Kaplan said the plaintiff's lawyer planned to refile the suit so a new jury can decide the 2 deadlock claims. She claimed the amount of damages awarded from the other counts eye-opening. That sends a loud message, says Kaplan. The verdict, though mixed, is a rebuke to white nationalist movement, particularly for 24 individuals and organizations accused in the federal lawsuit for orchestrating violence against African American Jews and other in a meticulously planned conspiracy. White nationalist leader Richard Spencer vowed to appeal, saying the entire theory of the verdict is fundamentally flawed. So, good for her, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll have time for your review now, if you want to.
Okay.
And
I'd
you
like
have a clip that goes with this, too, don't you?
Yes, I'm going to read the review and then show you the trailer. And this appeared in the current issue of the Gay and Lesbian Review
You want to hold it up?
worldwide.
Okay.
It's called Fighting Racism, Skirting Gender Lines. It's a review of the film My Name is Polly Murray. Filmmakers Betsy West and Julia Cohen first gained public attention in 2018 with the release of their inspiring documentary RBG that many of us saw, I think. Now they have followed up with My Name is Polly Murray, a project of an entirely different order. While Ruth Bader Ginsburg received wide recognition as a Supreme Court justice, Murray is relatively unknown. So the filmmakers' task became twofold: to introduce Murray to a general audience and to celebrate her accomplishments. The endeavor was rendered more challenging because of the complexity of the subject's life. Raised in poverty in the Jim Crow South, Murray struggled against racism and sexism for much of her life. In addition, internal conflict over gender identity and relationships with women called for privacy in a figure who at certain points sought publicity in the service of the causes she espoused. At this point, I include a note that I use the term woman advisedly. A transgender designation was not available to her at the time, and she was known by female pronouns. Murray's list of unheralded accomplishments is a long one. Among many firsts, she was the first African American to receive a Yale Law doctorate in 1965, and the first Black woman to be ordained an Episcopal priest. Murray's cutting-edge argument that segregation was unconstitutional influenced the 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education decision, though her contribution was credited only privately and after the fact. Years later, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg successfully argued before the Supreme Court that the 14th Amendment prohibited sex discrimination, she publicly credited Murray and brought it to the attention of filmmakers West and Cohen. The resulting documentary is ambitious and informative. Interviewees include legal scholars, friends, students, and family members. A display of Murray's words on the screen opens the film, followed by a clip from Murray in an interview telling her dog to lie down as they pose for the camera. This humanizing start cuts to a shot of Murray's great-grandniece, Karen Rouse Ross, recounting their last phone call in 1985 and the discovery of the 141 boxes of memorabilia housed at Harvard's Schlesinger Library. The film next moves to an account of the 1940 Petersburg, Virginia bus incident in which Murray and her friend and probable lover Mac were jailed for a night. This narrative is accompanied by images of the jail and segregated South in 1940 and concludes with Mac's daughter talking about her mother's experience. What is omitted from the film is that Murray was passing as a man during the encounter. West and Cohen have deliberately eschewed chronology in favor of a structure highlighting key moments in their subject's life. Accordingly, the film next shifts to 1913, the year of Murray's mother's death, when she was 3. Family pictures combined with historical images of lynchings and the impoverished black school that Murray attended. The narrative goes along in this way, touching on Murray's time in New York, her freight riding period, an interval at a New Deal women's camp where she met lover Peggy Holmes, and periods of scholarship and teaching at various academic institutions. While practicing at the prestigious Paul Weiss law firm, as the only African American and one of 3 female lawyers, Murray met an enduring lover and partner, Irene Barlow. The relationship lasted until Barlow's death 15 years later, though through Murray's 18-month sojourn in Ghana and a tumultuous time as a professor of Brandeis. Personal writings rendered in Murray's voice explain that the devastation occasioned by Barlow's death prompted Murray to turn her attention to spirituality and enter the Episcopal Seminary to become a priest. She achieved sainthood posthumously. Not surprisingly, West and Cohen make liberal use of archival footage. Of this material, the most effective tools in bringing Murray to the audience are her own words. Selections of poetry and prose displayed on the screen and often read by Murray herself. Interspersed with this material are segments from educational settings. Rutgers lectures by African American scholar Brittany Cooper, clips from a Yale seminar in which students consider Murray's work, short segments showing biographer Patricia Bell Scott talking to a group of young people in front of Murray's family home in Durham, underscore her importance for posterity. Speeches and interviews with transgender activists like Chase Strangio from the ACLU seek to contextualize Murray's transgender identity historically and for our times. The documentary ends with an acknowledgement of the posthumous honors Murray has received and a final shot of a female African-American North Carolina student reading a selection of Murray's poetry. West and Cohen are to be commended for choosing to spotlight Murray and for the depth and diligence of their research. Moments of pathos occur in the reproduction of the private notes of Murray and Barlow, and in interview excerpts when Murray directly addresses the camera. Yet somehow Pauli Murray never really comes alive in this film. It may be that the filmmakers try to do too many things, or that 91 minutes just isn't enough. That said, even if the film doesn't quite complete the picture of a highly complex person, My Name is Pauli Murray is an important beginning. And now let's look at a clip, a trailer.
There are some people who now argue that you cannot teach American history without teaching about Pauli Murray.
Pauli was a writer, a lawyer, a priest, a poet. Pauli was a feisty woman.
My name is Pauli Murray. My whole history has been a struggle in a society dominated by the ideas that blacks were inferior to whites and women were inferior to men.
Pauli was way ahead of the times.
I chose for my senior paper, Should Plessy versus Ferguson be overruled? My little argument went to the Supreme Court.
Y'all see all of the different folks that are in this room? That is made possible by Pauli Murray.
If you rip away everything, oppression is the business of not respecting one's personhood. For my first 2 years, I was the only woman in the law school.
They didn't even let me talk.
Thurgood Marshall is talking about Jim Crow, and she says, what I'm experiencing is Jane Crow.
Pauli Murray was not just an amazing lawyer or a badass feminist, but also a queer, non-binary person.
Sitting in front of Murray's notes,
The turmoil and the suffering.
this is a feeling I know well.
Scholars who have written about Pauli largely still use feminine pronouns. I don't know what pronouns Pauli would say.
Trans and gender non-binary people have always been a part of our American context. So did y'all just think that your generation invented it?
But if this country is to survive, we must live together in harmony.
Pauli may not have realized they would be a beacon for so many folks.
Pauli's time had not come. We have to work for a world in which it does come.
If you say I can't, I'll show you I can, even if I die trying.
I liked it. I thought the movie was interesting. I mean, I didn't have any idea who she was. So
What an accomplished life, though.
you know,
What a trailblazer.
and to you know have her finally get some of the acknowledgement she deserves is really an important historic
Contribution.
So and there's a book also which you wrote the review for.
Well, no, it's this magazine.
Right, but you wrote a review of the book also.
I,
right?
oh, yeah. There are 3 biographies, actually.
Right. And
I
you
wrote
did one.
I wrote a review of the 3rd.
Yeah, and that was, you know, informative too. So,
Trailblazer,
watch
pioneer.
the film, and you can let us know what you think. And on that note, I think we should do as Roberta Kaplan and Pauli Murray and a lot of our
Predecessors?
really is remember.
Resist.
Resist.